We've got a brand new LSPDFR 0.4 update entitled Ambience. Apparently, this is going to be the last update, the final part of the preview series for 0.4. If you want to see any of the past updates I've covered, I'll link them down below. You can check out all the parts. They go over details about the upcoming 0.4 version of LSPDFR. I'm going to read the news post, go over some thoughts. I'll also include some photos that are part of this update. So one of the things we like most about developing new versions of LSPDFR is that with each version, we have the opportunity not only to work on major new features, but also the smaller details that our mods have come to be known for over the years. Of course, 0.4 is no different in this regard, and a lot has obviously changed since the early days of LSPDFR, offering us with a bunch of new ways to focus our attention to detail. More realism. Getting straight to the point, a significant change that we're making in 0.4 relates to how the player is perceived within the game's world. Now, while this obviously isn't a sexy new video-worthy showstopper of a feature, it's nonetheless an important development behind the scenes, one that we think, despite its subtlety, we have a positive impact on your gameplay. In 0.4, you'll notice that while on duty, other characters within the world will treat and react to you differently. As GTA 5 was never about being a cop, it's easily understandable that when you quite simplistically do become a cop while keeping the underlying theme of the game, there's going to be things that don't feel quite right. You might notice, for example, that other characters within the world are overly aggressive towards you, itching for a fight at the slightest confrontation, or sometimes in the absence of any confrontation at all. Conversely, the opposite is often true, where the most banal or routine encounter can send people hurrying away in abject panic. Both of these reactions are problematic, as people generally don't just spontaneously approach a cop and proceed to cuss them out, nor do they begin hysterically fleeing at the sight of a stun gun. Here's a photo. Stun gun hysteria and stampedes no longer. LSPDFR 0.4 introduces more contemporary reactions, like everyone summoning their inner videographer. So this is kind of interesting. This is going to help you actually feel like a cop in the GTA 5 world. You'll notice we use a lot of kind of third-party plugins in order to keep peds from going crazy. Otherwise, they panic at the slightest sight of a taser. So this update looks to fix that issue. These adjustments to the game's core apply in a number of other cases too. Of course, we thought it was pretty unlikely that the typical reaction to a police officer standing in front of someone's car would be for the driver to flip them off, and then, as if that wasn't enough, to then run them over for good measure. Likewise, it was always pretty ridiculous that you can't enter another police officer's car as a passenger without them freaking out, thinking that you're trying to steal it. I've actually never tried to do that. All these behaviors have been adjusted, and we think that you'll feel far more like an actual cop within the world rather than just a retired bank robber dressing up with a badge. And yes, while there are a number of mods out there that can help mitigate many of the scenarios I've described above, they don't really offer a comprehensive and consistent solution simply due to technical restraints. Our changes are at a much lower level and offer us a higher degree of control on a per character basis. This is great for flexibility and performance, and we think that you'll really notice a difference when out and about on patrols. That's really exciting. Honestly, that's going to make a huge difference for me, someone who puts out several LSPDFR patrols a week. Having the actual AI treat you like a cop, that's a game changer in my opinion. New interaction menu. Sticking with the topic of small detail, increasing the level of interaction in LSPDFR is something that's very important to us, especially with the new focus on character in LSPDFR 0.4. Indeed, we previously showed off a number of new interaction options that will be available during vehicle pursuits, but we've also taken the time to make big improvements to the more general interaction menu, offering you most of the features currently available in GTA Online, but with an LSPDFR twist. Among the changes to the interaction menu are a quality of life improvements like being able to quickly waypoint the nearest police station, as well as additions like new dialogue, actions, and the ability to set your character's mood. Similarly, you can now also change the way that your character walks, but it doesn't quite stop there, as in keeping with the general idea we outlined above on making the game feel more suited towards being a cop, there's a special cop walk style that not only makes your character walk around like an officer, but also replaces their generic idle animations, subtle movements that your character makes while stationary, with more appropriate police-styled ones. We've got another screenshot of the interaction menu in LSPDFR. You can see there's a quick GPS, police radio option, different actions, player mood, walk style, and dialogue. Additionally, you carried over this level of detail to the police radio options too, replacing the static animation that currently plays in the menu with a number of different options that can be cycled between instead, including a nifty new LAPD handheld radio, as well as the option to play no animation at all. Again, this is a small detail, but we hope that the enhanced level of immersion will be welcome, especially if playing as an FIB agent and communicating via an earpiece instead of a shoulder mic, for example. So this is really exciting. We're going to be able to, as the screenshot shows, do different animations for answering the radio, including a handheld option versus the one on the shoulder. New technology in 0.4 produces incredibly lifelike scenes. You can freely move while using the police radio without any animation issues like arms being locked in place. That's pretty cool. You can walk and talk on the radio. Finally, still on the topic of detail, we've topped things off by adding a proper police flashlight to LSPDFR 0.4. Yes, we know there's a bunch of ways to use a flashlight currently, whether it be the vanilla one that looks like it's straight out of a horror movie, or through other mods which suffer from animation problems, but ours is a little different. Already alluded to in the first preview we gave of 0.4, our flashlight is properly held above the head and can be used both by the player and other NPC officers. It doesn't affect player movement, and you can freely walk, run, sprint, etc. while still holding the light. If enabled, equipping it is a seamless process too. Simply select the flashlight from the weapon wheel and LSPDFR will take care of the rest. The new style of holding the flashlight, I think that looks so cool, and it's a lot more realistic than kind of the GTA 5 default way of holding it, especially for police. New flashlight in LSPDFR 0.4 tops off our efforts to bring more immersion and realism to the mod. Ambient crime. In our previous post detailing some of the technology behind 0.4, we mentioned that we had added scenarios to 0.4, scripted events that could take place during pursuits and traffic stops. We also noted that 0.4 introduces a new crime system capable of actually recognizing crimes that take place in the game world, providing functionality for the player to get involved by reporting these. Expanding upon this idea, we want to make sure we fully realize the ambient world that Grand Theft Auto 5 provides, and to do this, we manipulated a couple of lesser used features within the original game. In the normal game, the player will sometimes be confronted by other characters within the world as a result of the agitation system built into the game, which allows NPCs to insult or shove the player, for example. In 0.4, as a result of some research by LMS, we've now been able to implement the same system but for NPCs instead. This means that NPCs can become agitated with each other, begin trading insults, get into angry shouting matches, or eventually physical confrontations. Plus, as these are actually legitimate game events, other characters nearby will react appropriately, which also ties in really nicely with the crime system and provides the player with something other to do than to respond to dispatches or pull over vehicles. There's now hopefully much more actually happening within the world, and consequently more things for the player to notice while on patrol. Ambient crime, it intends to bring GTA 5 to life with having scripted scenarios that can happen randomly throughout the world. We've seen some of these third-party plugins such as Albo's Traffic Policer implement these, and also Peter U. Callouts has done this where random events pop up, but now it's going to be baked into the actual LSPDFR modification, and you can respond to it appropriately. You could call this in, get backup, and the system will actually recognize it. So it's going to make things a lot more fluent. Here's the last screenshot shared. Manipulating the game's agitation system results in a much richer world. Seen here are two NPCs engaging in a spontaneous confrontation. As a final note, some of the screenshots show EUP uniforms. LSPDFR wants to make a note that these are entirely optional, and thanks to the EUP team for a copy of EUP 8.0. Thanks for reading the preview. We appreciate your patience as we put the finishing touches on 0.4 and hope to have some more news soon. So we still don't have a release date, but seeing as this is the final update for the preview series, we got to be getting close. I'm really expecting before the year to end that we're going to get this update, and I'm excited. A lot of these features have been highly requested. It's going to make LSPDFR patrols more engaging, more immersive, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. What do you guys think? Are these updates enough to get you to come back to LSPDFR if you already left? Are there some features that you think were missed out that could be added in? It's still only 0.4 version of the mod. They're not even at a 1.0. So, of course, there's room for updates to come. I'm curious what your feedback is. Leave me a comment down below. If you want to read the article for yourself, I'll leave a link to the news post down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next patrol.